Welcome back, Silverwolf fans. Something we've not heard on the mainstream news very much at all, and certainly not recently, is about Fukushima in Japan. Now, this is a map of Japan. They have the three main islands here. There is a fourth one up here as well. Other islands further up that they dispute with Russia. There's about 128 million people who live in Japan. The country's only about the size of New Zealand, so it's a very densely populated country. Very modern as far as technology and that goes. However, what we have seen is cover-up, lies, deceit, secret, and I don't know what else you'd call it but conspiracy. Only now have they finally come out with the fact it's a category 7, and to be honest, if they had a higher category, it would probably be that as well. Chernobyl was a category 7 nuclear disaster. Depending on who you believe, Chernobyl either resulted in 34 deaths, which was the deaths of the firefighters and that, or as many as 1 million deaths. There's vast arguments over that. The fact of the matter is, there was a large amount of radiation released, and it spread over Ukraine, Belarus, as far away as Sweden, Germany, even Britain. And some of those radioactive isotopes will be around forever, longer than recorded human history. You're talking hundreds of thousands of years, sometimes millions of years. So it's a very dangerous thing we're playing with here. In the case of Fukushima, we have had full meltdowns. Not only that, we've had the nuclear rods, which were stupidly sat on top of reactors. The spent fuel rods blowing all over the place as well. And on top of that, we've also had the fact that it's not just a uranium fuel, but it's uranium and plutonium, a MOX fuel, and it produces even more far deadly radiation isotopes. And these have not only just spread around in Japan, but have also travelled all the way throughout the Northern Hemisphere, hitting the west coast of the United States, but even in places like Philadelphia. So what you've got to understand about radiation clouds or fallout clouds is it's where the rain falls. And in the case of one fallout cloud, the rain fell in Philadelphia, so they're now turning up radioactive isotopes in Philadelphia. In Canada, they just simply turned off their monitoring things. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's disgusting. It says a lot about our so-called democratic governments. Anyhow, Fukushima there, they've declared a 20-kilometre exclusion zone, which to me is much too small. Chernobyl still, even to this day, has a 30k exclusion zone. And there's numerous various hotspots within that. They talk about cleanup in Japan, and there's no such thing as cleanup. You can't clean it up. The stuff can get in the groundwater, and it's impossible to clean up. No amount of money will fix it. And Chernobyl, as soon as that happened, they were trying to put the fire out. People lost their lives heroically putting the fire out, and then they dumped a whole bunch of boron, graphites, various other things, sand, concrete, and eventually entombed the whole thing in a big concrete shield, which they're going to replace again at the cost of $1 billion, over $1 billion, to keep all the radiation locked in. Well, in Japan, they haven't even entombed any of these reactors yet. In fact, they're not talking about anything like that for a year or so. So what have they done? They've just merely cooled it off with seawater, and occasionally brought in barges with fresh water so they don't corrode the pipes completely. And that seawater, of course, is going to leak straight back into the Pacific Ocean, and they're irradiating vast chunks of the Pacific Ocean. Puts me off eating tuna, I can tell you, or anything from the Pacific Ocean for quite some time. And the truth of this matter will come out in the stats eventually. Japan currently has the longest life expectancy of any nation in the world, I think it's about 86 for their males and even higher for their females. And it will only take maybe 3 or 4 decades, and we're going to see that Japan will have a much lower life expectancy. And it'll be simply down to the fact of this disaster spraying radiation all over the place and people dying of cancer much younger. That's the insidious thing about radiation. It may not kill you instantly, but over time it will kill you, even low doses. Tokyo's down here, and even in their air filters for their cars, they're turning up very, very radioactive air filters. So you can imagine what is happening to people's lungs, which are also giant air filters. And I don't know what else I can say about this disaster. Someone's described it as the world's largest industrial man-made disaster, and I'd have to agree with them. I think I'll let the Bible speak for me. I'll quote from the book of Revelations, chapter 8, and starting in verse 10. Then the third angel sounded, and the great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water, and the name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the water because it was made bitter. And indeed, radiation fallout does affect the groundwater, and well, you won't taste a bitter taste, but it will certainly have bitter consequences for you. That's Silver Bull Channel.